Hi, it's time for a movie review, and I'm going to cover a relatively new movie. Its title is Falling. It was released late last year, and it's directed by Viggo Mortensen, and it's his first project as a director. He was also responsible for the screenplay, and he's also the lead character in the movie. He plays John Peterson. Other cast members are Willis Peterson, that's his father, played by Lance Henriksen. Then we get the characters much younger in life. The younger Willis, young married man, Sverre Gudnason. Sarah is John's sister, and she's played by a very competent actress, Laura Linney. And Hannah Gross plays Gwen, that's Willis's wife, and Eric is played by Terry Chen. Now he is John's boyfriend stroke husband. And then we have a number of children who play the characters. John is played as a baby, as a 4-year-old, as a 9-year-old, and as a 16-year-old. So you get a sort of picture of what we're looking at here. And one point to note is there's a sort of very cameo style appearance by David Cronenberg, the prolific director who plays Dr. Klasner. And so those are the cast details. So to begin with then, I spent the best part of 20 years of my working career working with children who were victims of some form of abuse, be it physical, sexual or emotional. So arriving at the first frames of this particular movie, which is basically Viggo Mortensen's project, I was ready to take the details in my stride. However, preparing for Willis is something else. For most of us, emotional scars from our upbringing are inevitable, but to a lesser or greater extent. But Falling takes you into the central conflict between John and his aging father, Willis, who it's clear can't continue to live alone as Alzheimer's is creeping slowly into his failing mind. Mortensen plays John, a gay man from Los Angeles, who has to bring his conservative father, Willis, played by Lance Henriksen, to live with him. His father still resides on the family farm where John was raised. It's a very rural setting in upstate New York. The impact on both is considerable. A liberal California is a far cry from Willis's farm-like retreat in the north. So John is subjected to constant verbal abuse about his sexual orientation. John's married to Eric and they raise a daughter, Monica. Eric is also on the receiving end of Willis's verbal jabs, but it's John who receives the barrage of abuse. Mortensen also morphs flashbacks to a young John with his abusive father, and much of this footage is tense and frightening as we experience the smouldering volcano in Willis in this situation. John, as he becomes a teenager, is seen as taking more care of his siblings and to an extent becoming a barrier between mother and the raging father. And there are some powerful, some similarities with another powerful movie that I watched last year, Affliction, that tackled the ugliness of machoism and family violence. The most fundamental aspect of the human story is laid out before us here. John, he's in a dilemma. He faces it constantly. He doesn't want to allow himself to be harassed by his father, but he's unable to walk away from it either, because the person he loves will die. Additionally, there remains some rare moments when John sees who he loves and that person shows a softer side to their personality, reminding you of better times. This movie will touch many viewers, and it makes it so meaningful, I think, about what's going on. So a few scenes that I felt worth repeating here. Early on, first scene, we get a glimpse at Willis's very self-centered nature and how heinous his thoughts are in flashback when he comments when asked to change a nappy by his wife for the baby daughter. He utters a wish that he had hoped she had died at birth. We then also get an early scene in the here and now. Willis gets into a real stupor when he wakes up on an aeroplane and he's had some nightmares, and this precipitates rage that Tron has to try and control. Of course, it's in an aircraft, which makes it even more difficult. The aircraft is transporting the pair of them to John's home in California. Another flashback finds Willis in macho mood, teaching John, as a boy, the art of shooting whilst out on a lake. They're shooting birds, and that is something that he feels is vital for the boy's upbringing. And then, of course, with the arrival of Alzheimer's, we also see at the airport after they arrive, Willis wanders off and creates another crisis as John can't find him, and involves many members of the staff at the airport. There's a huge gulf that's exposed between father and son with regard to tolerance, prejudice, of course, and values over John's sexual orientation. Willis, for sure, is homophobic, and that's at the heart of his abuse to John. Hugely impressive is how Viggo Mortensen delivers in the character of John. He shows almost a saint-like manner in refusing the bait countless times through his father's provocative attacks, calling him a fag, a fairy, repeatedly. And the incessant manner of Willis makes the viewer see how a love for a family member could easily be eroded by a dementia sufferer, and one questions how John is still able to care for him. Additionally, a tortuous scene is when we see the family at an evening meal. Willis gets a kick out of shock by talking about gay sex at the dinner table. His daughter has arrived, and it plays out as an excellent sort of advertisement for Willis's obnoxious behaviour. And as a word of note, of course, the sister of John, played by the excellent Laura Lilly. Another scene that I found quite memorable is when Willis visits the doctor for a checkup. He has had problems. He has previously had a cancer, and there's a tremendously humorous scene involving Willis, his son, and the doctor, played with panache by one David Cronenberg. The repartee is definitely a highlight. So overall, the movie really does provoke discussion, I feel, about these very emotional issues, about looking after your elderly parent, and particularly in view of the decline in their physical health. And to its credit, the end doesn't go down the predictable reconciliation route. In fact, the end is very unexpected and adds to the debate, and I'm not going to share it with you. However, one has to say that Mortensen's performance has always been 5-star as an actor, and it's of that same ilk here as a director. And he certainly has a very powerful performance. But one has to hand it to Hendrickson, whose performance probably is even better. And amazingly, this particular movie was avoided by the awards season. Goodness knows why not. But perhaps the late arrival of The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins, playing a elderly man with Alzheimer's disease, may have well meant that this movie had to miss out. So anyway, get to watch it. It's a very, very good film. It's called Falling, and it was released in 2020, directed, written and starring Viggo Mortensen.